Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm your resident conspiracy theorist, Tammy, aka Unacceptable Canadian Girl, and with me, as always, are my conspiratorial co-hosts, Ashley, aka Fun Acceptable Views, and Suze, aka Suze Creamy. Ladies, how are you tonight?
I'm doing decent. Thank you for asking.
I like how you didn't say excellent because I'm excellent. I'm doing
I was
excellent.
just going to say that. I was just going to say that. Notice how she doesn't
Excellent.
steal from you, Suze. As always, we also have our Jamie, aka Perception Correction, with us tonight. Jamie, how are you?
Excellent. Excited for the show. Thank you.
Awesome. So before we get to the topic tonight, we actually have a special guest with us. We have Jason from Wiretap Media. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me, guys. Pretty excited.
Woo. Welcome, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hey,
Welcome.
guys.
So Jason, before we jump into tonight's topic, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Wiretap Media?
Well, Wiretap Media is just a conceptual media project. I got tired of, our mainstream media not representing all the facts and providing all the information. So I just kind of took it upon myself to start putting together, all the information and putting it out to the public. And now I'm here.
Awesome. It's
So
one
you're
of my
saying-
favorite media sources.
You're saying the mainstream media doesn't give us all the facts? What?
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. You guys probably wouldn't be doing this podcast if they did.
That's fair. That's
You're
fair.
not wrong.
So I guess we should thank them.
Right? Thanks, mainstream media.
Yeah.
I guess all of us here should thank them because we all kind of have a thing happening with trying to tell the truth.
Yo, no
Yeah.
offense. I'm not thanking them for anything.
So rude.
Jamie's bitter.
Yeah.
Oh,
So tonight we are going to talk about MK Ultra, and we did an episode kind of when we somewhere around the time that we started the podcast, one of the first few episodes, and we talked a little bit about what it was, and we only lightly touched on the victims. I don't even think we had Jamie with us at that time, actually. And so tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about the actual victims. And Jason and I have gone back and forth on a few occasions just talking about different things. He actually brought to my attention that Ted Kaczynski, the Uni-Bomber, was a victim of MK Ultra. So I thought it would be a good topic for tonight. Everybody's homework was to watch the Trance documentary. So it's called Trance, the story of Kathy O'Brien. So who was able to get through it?
Me.
50%.
I just finished like
40%.
3 minutes before we started recording.
I watched it this morning with my coffee. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So what did you guys think about it, Jason?
I thought it was good. But my only argument, and this is just counter argument, I don't think that she was ever released from the program. In fact, she was put into the hands of another handler for her to tell her story. Now, if we touch back to what you guys talked about before about Dr. Ewan Cameron implanting memories into people's minds, you have to know that these same tactics were being implemented in live format. So I'm not discrediting her, and I'm not discrediting the other people who suffered from this, but how much of those memories are real and how many may be implanted? And on top of that, if you send somebody out into the public and they're sharing this story, it's not believable. So it downgrades. And, like, I think she mentioned something about like the Mexico president was begging, American intelligence to kill her and all this kind of stuff. Why didn't they? Unless it was to put her into the public so that it creates that I don't know, like distrust from the public, if that makes sense. Am I making sense? Or
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I was going to ask, like, well, why would they want her to tell this story? But then after you continued saying, like, to discredit the whole thing, because it is such a far-fetched story, right? And in the way she tells it, it's like, wow, did this really happen? And even when you just Google her, everything that comes up is like that she claims this, that, and the other, but that there's no actual evidence to support any of her claims. Now I haven't checked on Yandex. Maybe you'll find more accurate information, but I guess
There's so much more on Yandex.
it would make sense that would be why they would want to put her out there with this story. I get it. I get what you're saying, Jason.
yeah, so it's like the whole Genghis Khan thing, right? Is like he would invade a village, leave one survivor, they run to the next village, they tell what happens, and then like they just submit, right? And in this case, the game of telephone is designed to discredit her even more and create less trust from the public.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it from that angle, but
Makes sense. But it wouldn't necessarily mean that that the memories and what she's saying isn't factual. It could be factual. But again, it still is so far-fetched that it discredits her anyways, even if it is factual.
Of course. And like I said, there was these simulations running in universities, prisons, and everything all over North America.
mhm.
Even like you guys mentioned, McGill University was one spot, Harvard, Oshawa was another one. So
Stanford and Princeton too.
yeah, so it just you have to know that these experiments being run were being done in live format as well, right? Like there's a purpose to these experiments, and they have to be implemented on live individuals.
Yeah, that's interesting. Ash,
Yeah.
you're quiet over there.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with what you're saying, Jason, and that's exactly where my mind went when I was watching it today. I said to my hubby, interesting. Why is she not dead?"
Yes, I thought that
And
too.
yeah, and so how is she able to share her story? And just like you were just saying, Suze, I don't know that it means it discredits everything, but I feel like there's no way that she's not still being controlled, or that there are memories that have been possibly modified, or I don't know if she would be able to access everything the way she thinks that she can. And so I'm not saying that she's not a credible source, but I think that we just have to keep that in mind when we're hearing her story, that we don't know, even if she thinks she's telling the truth, it doesn't mean that it's actually what happened. So, who knows how that would unravel.
Well, like let's be realistic too. If you're suffering perpetual mental abuse, you're going to you're gonna further that. Like she even said, like I did what they told me to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they could easily have implanted or created more of the story for her. I just found it interesting that she went into the hands of another handler. That's the part that just sent red flags for me. I know who Kathy O'Brien is, and I have heard her story. This was a little bit more in depth, and it was a good documentary. Now, the information and the facts she provides about the program, and how it like kind of splintered off into like, Project Mockingbird and a variety of different other things, that's all factual, right? Like that's hard-based evidence. It's just her experiences are only validated through other witness or other victims. And, why did they pick her to be the voice is my question.
I
Well,
have a quick question. Sorry, just a quick question regarding her going into the hands of another handler. Is I didn't watch the whole thing, but where I heard her say that she had the one handler, which was Wayne Cox, and then she was her owner was then U.S. Senator Robert Seabird. Was there another handler after that?
No, like when she got out of the program, she didn't call him a handler. But it's more or less that's what he was, because then he started parading her around, and then she was like giving speeches and lectures and talking about her experiences.
Sorry,
Now,
Jason, are you talking about Mark Phillips?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the gentleman. Well, I think they ultimately ended up getting married.
Mm-hmm. Which
Oh,
is
wow.
interesting too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, what's the best way to control someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't discredit what she went through. I'm sure it was horrific. She probably suffered some serious abuse. I've heard stories about, like, this all ties back, and you guys discussed this, to like Nazi Germany, and Hitler did run like incest camps and sexual abuse, and they did all sorts of experiments like that. So I don't discredit that she experienced that stuff,
Yeah, for sure. And it is interesting because I kind of dug a little bit deeper last night too, just kind of into the beginnings of all of this, and it goes back to like 1946. So Harry Truman actually authorized Project Paperclip, and the DoD hired Nazi doctors, scientists, and spies, and then they brought over 1,600 Nazis and Italian fascists, as well as their dependents, into the U.S. through South America, and they had assistance from the Vatican and the Red Cross Society, which kind of blew my mind.
I caught that. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that the Russians basically didn't want so when they divvied up World War II, the Russians took technology and the Americans took personnel?
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
That's terrifying. And the other crazy thing too with all of this is all of the sub operations underneath of it. So like I knew of a few of them just because MK Ultra is something that has interested me for a while, but I did learn of some new ones. Like there was one called Operation Spellbinder, where they were trying to create sleeper cells and like sleeper agents. And my mind was blown by that because like I play a lot of video games. And so like, you play Call of Duty, stuff like that. You always have like sleeper cells and stuff, but you don't really think it's real. And it is that they were legitimately trying to create these things. And then Operation Often, where they were trying to harness occult forces.
That's and that's another thing with Hitler too, is he was heavily interested into the occult, right? And so, but what was the one you mentioned before that? Recreate splinter cells, like
Operation Spellbinder.
Was that through like the Manchurian Candidate program?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I think it was Ashley that mentioned that, like, or you guys said, like, I can't believe they tried to do that. Well, I think it's arguable that they were successful in creating them. And Ted Kaczynski is one of them. And like, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of like his background, who he was, and what he believed, but he was somebody that believed in like a subsistence lifestyle, like organic living. He believed that humanity was on the wrong path in terms of how we operate, right? He believed that it should be like smaller municipal communities, people helping people, more barter and trade, these sorts of things. And this guy was highly intelligent. Like, he's had papers published. He was a mathematician. So part of, you guys know, part of his abuse is that they would have counter arguments to his belief system. So they would send in a lawyer that believed in, staunch capitalism or technology, and then they would just drive into his head and really go after him. So one of his, the Industrial Society and its future. Yeah. So now where they were successful is his manifesto was written about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And that's what we're experiencing now.
And is that, so I just want to explain to the audience, Jamie, is that what you've got up here?
Yeah, that's his manifesto. And it's pretty much the exact opposite of stuff like that you would read coming out of WEF. Like rallying against it. Exactly what Jason said right there, as far as pretty much going against that technical revolution.
Yeah. So if you noticed right around 2016, 2017, we were starting to hear Justin Trudeau, the WEF, talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, right? Now, let's be realistic. Somebody that's in a CIA program just doesn't fall off the weigh scale, right? Like the CIA knows who this guy is. They're not, and for 17 years, he got away with bombing rich liberal technocrats and airlines, and he was specific in his targeting. He was targeting people that were that were pushing the technology and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Well, if you look in 2017, they started he gets locked up in 92, 93. And we don't hear anything about the Uni-Bomber for nearly close to 30 years. And in 2017, they started releasing, they released that show called Manhunt, the Uni-Bomber story, how the FBI developed linguistics to catch him, because their original profile is that he was an airplane mechanic, like some dumb airplane mechanic. Right. But he was really a very intelligent guy, and they were able to catch him through how his language. And that's how they invented linguistics. So if we look at the timing of everything, and they start releasing this, and his manifesto, his tape recordings, all that was all released in 2017. So if we're looking at a Manchurian candidate, he was successful. They were actually successful. Now, it was a long-term goal, right? Because we weren't there from a technological standpoint. And when the Fourth Industrial Revolution actually became reality, they used his radicalization and his extremism to market to the populace that if you think like this, you're a terrorist, right? And if you look at what the government's doing now, they're actually attacking people who believe in self-sustainability.
Yeah.
So in reality, from a marketing standpoint, they were successful. Now, this guy, you can't tell me that the CIA didn't know this guy was operating, right? That for 17 years, he was just getting away with this. No, it was part of the it was part of the plan, right? Is because they were operating in secret, their plan. And then all of a sudden we hear Trudeau, all these people talking about this Fourth Industrial Revolution, and then you're like, well, I can't be like the Uni-Bomber. If I don't think like them, then I'm the Uni-Bomber. So obviously that's all theory based, and that's just kind of speculation on my part. But I believe they've even used David Koresh in the same manner to attack Christianity.
Why do you think that? Well, maybe first explain who that is.
Well, he's the guy that had the Church of Christ. Now he wasn't a savory dude by any means. He's a kind of a knob, but they kept a lot of his stuff, hidden. They kept it from the public because there were a lot of errors on the ATF and the FBI side. But then all of a sudden we start seeing all these churches starting to get burned down in like 2019, 2020, like after the George Floyd incident. And, we're seeing this increase of hate crimes on the Christian community. And, COVID on top of that, if you really think about it, the only people that ever put up against vaccinations has been Christians, right? And that's been throughout history. So if you look at it from that perspective, it was in their best interest to like make him like a radical, right? And so I think they used his information too to kind of steer people away from the Christian faith.
I think they also, like, I agree with you. I don't think he was like a stellar dude by any means, but I think they framed Waco to look, maybe a little bit different than what it actually was.
Yeah, like they probably did. Like they made it seem sinister for sure.
Yeah.
But
and again, I don't think he was a great dude, but
yeah, I want to hear what you guys think about my theory with the Uni-Bomber. Like, does that make sense from a marketing perspective? Is like hold on to your like golden egg for like 30 years later when you're ready to market it?
100%.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but now that you're saying it, yeah, it's honestly, it's almost like public mind control.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like, just to kind of tie into that, if you've looked into Manson.
Yeah, he's another one.
He was a victim of MK Ultra, and actually a CIA operative. What was his? I think his last name was West, Dr. West, Jolin West, I think was his name. He had actually lived in the Manson farm for like 6 months or something, and he was dosing them with LSD while he was living there.
Oh, wow.
And so if you get deep, I mean, there's a whole lot with the Manson thing, but if you get, like a lot deeper into it, they were basically trying to take down the left wing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. It's interesting because so was Ted.
Right.
Yeah,
And there's the
I
whole
heard they
thing with
were-
the Black Panthers as well.
What? Say that again. Say that again, Tammy.
There's the whole thing with the Black Panthers as well. So it was like this huge left wing thing that they were trying to take down, and they were basically doing everything that they could, to get people on that same page. And they just kind of used Manson and the family to do it. It was all like race wars and all sorts of different things. Sorry, Ash, go ahead.
Well, I just think that it is interesting because they were trying to radicalize the movement of love and, freedom and, the hippie vibe. And if you think about it, look at what the left looks like now. So,
Right.
I find that
and
very, very, very interesting because what the left used to stand for, if you look at them now, it's nothing like it used to be. And so it took a little bit of time, but it seems to me like it has been radicalized and they are extremists now.
Can I read you something, Ash? And this is like how insightful, like we see the left as something, I think like we didn't look deeply enough into it. And so this is a quote, okay? So modern leftist philosophers tend to dismiss reason, science, objective reality, and to insist that everything is culturally relevant. More importantly, the leftists hate science and rationality because they classify certain beliefs as true, i.e., successful and superior, and other beliefs as false, failed and inferior. The leftist feelings of inferiority run so deep that he cannot tolerate any classification of some things as successful or superior, and other things as failed or inferior. This also underlines the rejection by many leftists of the concept of mental illness and of the utility of IQ tests. Leftists are antagonists to genetic explanations of human abilities or behaviors because such explanations tend to make some persons appear superior or inferior to others. Leftists prefer to give society the credit or blame for an individual's ability or lack of. Thus, if a person is inferior, it is not his fault, but society's, because he has not been brought up properly. Who do you think wrote that?
A Russian guy.
No, that was in Ted Kaczynski's manifesto.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
shit.
wow.
Oh, wow.
That's very interesting.
He wrote that 30 years ago.
So
That is,
something that I like, I went to U of T and I studied like postmodernism, and it's basically the, like, if you were to just, you know, in a nutshell, it's the lack of objectivity. And so basically everyone has their own reality, everyone has their own truth type thing. And postmodernism has destroyed the universities because it's this sort of Marxist, this you go from rational thinking to this idea that everyone has their own opinions that are just as valid as everyone else's, and there is no objective truth. And like, it's just completely dismantled the universities. And when I was learning this stuff, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, you know, but I'm like, I wasn't buying it. Like, even though I was at an impressionable age where maybe I could have gone all in, but I'm like, nah, this doesn't feel right. There's something wrong here. So that's kind of where I started to diverge from, even, you know, even though I was actually taking it in university, I started to distance myself from being a leftist because it just wasn't making sense anymore.
So does do you think that your critical thinking or your upbringing is what made you see it for what it is?
Yes, for sure. And so the idea that like I put critical thinking above everything, and now hypocritical thinking is above everything, right? So I think as you have to be able to step back and look as objectively as possible at what's going on, knowing that you have your own biases. And I feel like today people are allowed to have their own biases and they're allowed to trump other people's. And so it can't work that way. There still has to be, even though there's no one objective truth in reality, like it is true, there's lots of room for nuance. We still have to work towards an understanding that there's a more objective truth than there is no objective truth, because then you have complete chaos where anything goes, and then you end up with Trudeau.
Just like the circus that we're currently living.
Exactly.
But that's also how we end up in straw man arguments too, right? With liberals, it's like they'll
100%.
you write this magnificent paragraph with excellent points, and then they take the one fallacy and then they try to turn your whole conversation into something it's not.
That's what the media does too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No, well, that's what's been bred into the media, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like the whole MK Ultra thing, because if they've run these programs and brainwashing people within our educational systems, and then they flood our workforce and our government jobs, you know, our media, you know, people are operating without even knowing that they're an asset.
100%. And if everything that they, I mean, it is true, because you can go on the CIA reading room and look it up for yourselves, but Operation Paperclip or Project Paperclip, all those scientists, doctors, whoever they brought over, they went into the school systems, they went into government jobs, they were doing all sorts of things. So everything has been infiltrated. And it, like, I can't even believe I'm saying that publicly because it sounds so crazy, but it's actually true. And there's documentation to show that this is true. So we were infiltrated like in 1946-ish, and I don't think it's ever stopped.
Well, for sure it hasn't stopped.
No, it's still happening. Like, you take the repetitive messaging in the House of Commons, that is implemented from MK Ultra, right? If you tell the lie loud enough, long enough, people will believe it. And that's, you know, or if you, or this 8 out of 10 families get more back, like they create their own subset of numbers to make their truth a reality. And you know, I think,
buy it.
Yeah, and we're all victims of it. The problem is like, I'm just curious, what separates us? Like, what is it? Because I believe that everyone is under some sort of hypnosis, right? Like, people that are like engaging in this. So what prevents us from being susceptible to this MK Ultra program? That's what we'll call it.
Can I jump in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Ooh.
I think that it has something to do with a willingness to be wrong. It's a, you know, being able to hold your, you know, have strong opinions loosely held. And so as long as you keep checking yourself and being willing to listen to other people's opinions on things and correct your own opinion based on new information, which would be the straw man, steel man thing. I think that there's some sort of willingness to admit that you're wrong and update your information based on new information.
But why though?
Yes, that's the question. Why?
So like I agree with what you're saying 100%, but what makes us different? What is it? And Jason, you and I have had this conversation before.
Yeah, I have a weird like spiritual theory, but like this is like it might be way too out there.
Well,
I
I think
wanna hear it.
I probably have a similar one because that's where I went to in my mind, is that I'm just from a different time. And I always felt like I was kind of meant to be here now because I feel like I'm old timey in so many ways. And even a lot of the thoughts I've had growing up seemed out of place for my age or, you know, my upbringing or what have you. I just had different thoughts, and now they seem to be pretty relevant somehow, which is very strange.
So Jason, I want to hear your theory, but Ashley, I want to hear, what do you mean different thoughts? Because this is getting interesting now, because I felt the same way about myself. So I'm curious to know, like, when you were younger, like, what were the things that you were thinking? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, let me think about this. So just the idea, I'm trying to think about, while being on the spot a little bit, what would those be? An idea of fairness, an idea of maybe that I didn't come from the time that I'm in, like maybe, I don't know, sort of.
Can I say something quickly? As you were kind of speaking to that, I was kind of just reflecting on my own like upbringing and my own childhood, and you kind of made me agree with you, I guess, that I kind of felt the same. I almost felt like as a kid, I always felt, I don't know, light years older than the kids around me. I always felt more matured than the kids around me. And I always figured it was maybe just because of some of the stuff that I dealt with as a child that kind of forced me to mature. But I'm wondering now if there was more to all of that. But I'm very curious to hear Tammy, what you meant about like you always felt that about yourself, and Jason, your spiritual sort of thought process.
Well, for me, I remember being very, very young, and I was just talking with somebody about this, and I can't remember if it was Jamie. Might have been. Anyways, when I was a kid, I had the strangest thoughts. So I remember being about 10 years old, and I was listening to the radio, and there was a song that came on, and I remember thinking to myself, because I was kind of like bopping along to the song or whatever. And it dawned on me, I don't like this song. And I remember sitting there for a second and being like, this isn't a good song. Why did I dance to this? Like, why did I think I liked this song? And in that moment, I was like, I wonder if they're hypnotizing us with music.
Interesting.
Wow.
And I was like 10 years old. And that thought has stayed with me to this day. Like the thought in the sense of I've looked back on that moment and been like, why as a 10-year-old kid was that a thought to me? And like, what would ever make me think that? And I had many other ones like that, but I always kind of felt like, not that I didn't belong. Like I grew up, I had a pretty normal childhood, had lots of friends and stuff like that. But I just wasn't interested in the things that other people were interested in the sense of, I didn't care about TV. I didn't care about movies. And also I grew up in a household where like my parents didn't watch the 6 o'clock news. It wasn't a thing, shockingly enough, because now all my mom does is watch CNN.
Tammy's mom.
Yeah. But growing up, that's not the way that it was. The news was never on in our house. And I distinctly remember the only time the news was ever on in our house was when 9/11 happened. So just kind of going through my childhood, not being kind of hypnotized, if you will, by anything mainstream. We were out in the country, so I spent most of my days playing outside and eating mud pies is what I was doing.
Me
so
too.
I was very disconnected from that kind of whole thing. And like when people would have like the newest toy or whatever, I never heard about it because we didn't have cable. We didn't have anything. Now the internet I did have at a very young age, only because my mom like won this internet package or whatever. But I did always feel different. And I Ash, much like you, I kind of always wondered, like, and I don't even know that I believe in past lives, but I always was like, why am I here? Or like, was I sent here for a reason? Like, I don't know. It sounds really hokey, but these are the things that have crossed my mind. Anyways, Jason, over to you.
Well, I think that there's a connection between like emotional states of being, right? I think that, I'm like very sensitive to my emotions. I've learned to like put up a wall and protect myself, but I think maybe all of you can agree, like you do have like a very sensitive nature to yourself, like private. I think that's something. I think in turn from a spiritual perspective, and this sounds so corny, but like I've read about like indigo children.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like indigo children are like just have natural intelligence. They're very critical thinkers. They're very sensitive. They want the best for the world. They want the best for people. And I go back to that. And I believe like there was like an army of indigo children that have been bred into the world that are now standing up to the tyranny, if that makes sense.
It does to me. Yeah.
And they can't like be manipulated out of their thought processes because they're so stuck to their belief systems, right? As a young I've always questioned authority from, as far back as I could remember, so, and I think that's a big part of it too. Like, why am I doing that? Like, I think that's an important question we need to ask ourselves is, why are we doing that? Why are we sticking to these social norms or that sort of thing? But that's kind of like more my theory on it is, it ties your personality to the spiritual spectrum to some degree. Yeah.
I have a question for everyone. How are you guys with your dreams? Like, can you control your dreams? Because for me, for my whole life, I've been able to control my dreams to the point where I can change my dream. If I'm having a bad dream, I turn it to whatever I want. I can fly. I can look in the mirror in a dream, which apparently you're not supposed to do or not be able to do. I know when I'm dreaming and I just want to keep dreaming. Like, I have a lot of control over my dreams, and I just wondered if you guys have something similar like that.
Well, the more that
Yeah.
you talk about this, I feel like maybe I can control them a bit. I think I haven't really paid too much attention to it, so now I feel like I'm going to. But I know I did have a conversation with Tammy, and I know Tammy what she's about to say about her dream.
Yeah. Well, first, before I say that, just something interesting that Jamie has up on the screen is it said that the Rockefeller Foundation had an interest in making sure the United States adopted the 440 hertz standard in 1935 as part of a war on consciousness, leading to musical cult control.
Dang.
Just thought you found that interesting. And I got one more thing to add on, if I may, to the Kathy O'Brien sitch. So, like, the main case presented against her when she got to court initially was something called false memory syndrome, that they kind of, I don't know, she claims that they almost pretty much invented just to discredit her. And then this person down here, Elizabeth Loftus, was like a key person in creating this whole thing. Then if you click on her and you see what she's been up to, you go all the way down here, and she's been on the defense side for Ghislaine Maxwell, on the defense side for Jeffrey Epstein, on the defense side for Harvey Weinstein. Yeah.
Wow.
So
she's a good soldier.
That was a fun one. And then
sure
back
is.
to that doctor for Charles Manson.
Holy shit.
That guy also was the psychiatrist for the guy that shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes.
I was going to get there. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. I was pissed off we didn't bring that up in the first episode we did on MK Ultra, because I was kind of just like, I did a crash course that week, and I didn't know the names, but I'm like, I should have mentioned that guy, But
yes, that's
we definitely should talk about that.
Those are my add-ons, and then I got a little something at the end for the end of MK Ultra, but that's later.
Okay, we'll go back to this.
Well, thanks for putting us back on track there, Jamie.
No problem.
Yeah,
Back to rolling joints.
Back to rolling joints.
So Ash, it's funny you bring up dreams, because I recently, like within probably the last maybe 6 months, learned how to fly in my dreams.
Ooh, it's so much fun.
It is, and but it hurts the next day, because you like, at least for me, I must physically tense up in my sleep, but I can like, even thinking about it, I can still feel the sensation of doing it in my dream. And then actually I wore, so for my birthday, you guys got me the fluorite bracelet and the quartz bracelet.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's related, I don't know. But I accidentally wore them to sleep. And so last night I had a dream, and it was kind of going sideways, and I was walking through like I don't know, it was a dark forest, and I was feeling scared in the dream. And I looked down at my wrist in the dream, and I was like, I don't have to feel scared, because I can control this.
Whoa.
And as soon as I said that, everything was like fine. I wasn't scared anymore. It wasn't dark and scary. Like, so I can do a lot of weird things with my dreams and have been able to for a while, especially if you drink like, and I do this quite often, but if you drink blue lotus flower, or it's also known as butterfly pea flower tea before you go to bed, it's a nootropic. And the ancient Egyptians were super big into using it. I mean, I think if you use it in big doses, it can create psychedelics, but it would have to be very, very, very large doses of it. You can have, like 5 flowers in a cup of tea, and it turns like this beautiful blue, and it's actually really good for you and does not create those effects. But they believed that it opened you up to like the dream world, so to speak. So yeah, and I've also had, like, over the span of my entire life, I've had dreams that have come true on multiple occasions. Like, unfortunately, I knew that my dad was going to die about a year before he died.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Same with my grandfather. I actually knew my grandfather was going to die the day before he died. And I can't explain it. It was like this weird knowing, and I would have these dreams and they would just come true. And it still happens to me, like, to this day. So yeah.
I have the same, except with births or conceptions.
Interesting.
Yep. And so
Interesting.
I've dreamt about the birth of 3 babies, where I found out the next day that they were born. And it's kind of weird, I guess, but I also dreamt that my brother and his woman had conceived, and I didn't say anything about it, but I know the time that it was. And then when they told us, down the road, I'm like, was it then? Because I'd made it like a note of it, not just a mental note, but like an actual note, and told my mom about it. And yep, I dreamt about it when they were, I guess, kind of weird. I
Wow.
didn't picture anything creepy with my brother, but like,
Yeah.
but there, yeah. So I have the same thing as you, except with like births, I guess.
That's interesting. Jason,
Mhm.
Suze, what about you guys?
Yeah, I was going to ask Jason, like, if he can control dreams.
I can't control my dreams, but I have very vivid dreams, and I'm a firm believer that your dreams contain messages. There's no doubt about that. I have had prophetic dreams. I've had nightmares, like all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I've never had the opportunity to control a dream, which is interesting because now I'm going to make a mental note of this and see if I can, because I have flown in dreams, but have you guys ever had a paralytic state where you're trying to wake up and you're stuck in between, like, and you feel like you're choking?
Oh, what's that called? The sleep paralysis.
Yeah, it's like what is it? Astral catalepsy, or
Where they, like, the old myth is the witch sitting on your chest or whatever.
yeah. I've read other books that it's like you were actually astro traveling, and it was your soul's re-entrance into your body, and it was like, and you're stuck in that state in between. Now whether that's
That actually makes a lot of sense.
who knows, maybe it is a fucking witch sitting on me, but
Has this happened to you?
yeah, I know I've had I get it quite often, like the paralytic state. Like, I don't remember the dream or anything related to it, but I get it often. Yeah, the paralytic state, like the dream paralysis. Yeah, I get it quite often.
But
See,
no memory of astral travel.
No memory of it. No, just
Sorry, go ahead.
no. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I seem to be able to, if I ever am in a spot in my dream where things aren't going well, or if, like, time slows down and you're supposed to be running and you just can't run or something like that, I change my dream and like completely erase it. And it's like, what do you want? And it's like, well, maybe I want to be by a babbling brook, and like I completely recreate the dream.
That's you're like, what's that movie there with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
Inception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inception.
No, now that Jamie brought that up, though, this is interesting because it relates to what we're talking about. If they're running broadcasting at a different frequency, how do we know that our dreams aren't being manipulated?
Ooh, interesting.
I've wondered that before.
Oh, shit.
I don't know though, because I think, okay, so if you've ever looked into the gateway process, I'm actually looking at the CIA documents for it right now, because it's my favorite operation. But the gateway process is where they used hemisync. So what that is they did, say 120 hertz in one ear and 100 hertz in the other ear, and your brain hears the difference between the hertz. And depending on what hertz you're hearing, you can do different things like astral project and whatever. But basically, you have to hear those noises for that to be able to happen. And they talk about a few other ways that it's possible, but their most successful way to do that was through the hemisync process, which is the hertz and the sound. But you had to be listening to it for it to be able to take effect. So I think that they can manipulate us with sound for sure. I think there's a lot of things that they can do with that, but I don't know, unless you were listening to maybe like Doja Cat while you're sleeping. I say her because of that weird Satan song that she does. It freaks me right out. But I don't think it would be possible without that. I could be wrong, but based on everything that the gateway process says, you have to kind of have the hertz in your ears to be able to do it. And even then, it's not an overly easy process.
Do you believe that there's a close relation between spirituality and science?
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe that they purposely keep us from this truth because they don't want us to know our true strength?
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. And I came to that conclusion actually when I first discovered the gateway process, because if you've ever read through those documents, first of all, your mind would be blown. We need to do an episode on it actually, but I keep forgetting. But reading through those documents, if you don't read through them and at the end have your mind completely blown and feel that they are keeping from us who we truly are, because if we knew our true power, we would annihilate them.
Well, what do you think our stated purpose is here? And what do you think they're trying to prevent us from by using these manipulative tactics like MK Ultra?
I personally, I kind of am with you on the indigo children thing. How it works, I don't know. I believe that many of us were sent here to wake up the rest. For what purpose, I have no idea. But I believe that we are in a spot right now where we are trying to remember ourselves, but also trying to wake the others up. And I think we all, if you talk to really anybody that's kind of, shares the same beliefs as we do in terms of like your freedoms and stuff like that, many people will say they've always felt different. They feel like they've been put here to like wake people up and stuff like that. How it works, I have no idea, but I truly believe there's something bigger at play here, and they are trying their best to make sure that we do not figure out our true power, because I think if we did, they're done. And I think that we're getting dangerously close to the 100th monkey effect, if you guys know what that is. Where the masses are waking up very, very, very quickly.
Mhm.
And I'll use my brother's wedding as an example. I was there a couple weekends ago, and my aunt, who, at the beginning of COVID or whatever, she very much was for the COVID vax and stuff like that. And I remember having conversations with her, and you know, she's a great woman, and we never had arguments about it, but she definitely wasn't awake to it. And then fast forward to the wedding a couple weeks ago, and there's like 6 of us talking, 6 people that I never dreamed would be having the conversation. And I'm like telling them about everything corrupt in the world, and they're listening, and they're being red pilled on the spot at this wedding, but they're willing to listen. So I think that there's like a great awakening happening, and I think that we're here to help that happen. And I think we are starting to realize how powerful we actually are. And like, when I say powerful, like, human beings have the power to communicate telepathically. They discuss it in these documents. They actually talk about how long it takes a thought to reach somebody. So like, if you've ever, you know, thought of somebody and then they message you or they call you and you haven't heard from them in a long time, that's a thing that they actually discuss in these documents. It's a real thing.
So do you think that they used these sorts of programs to block us? Like, do you think that MK Ultra is a tool that's being used to block us, like block your connection to the divine?
Yes.
Probably, yeah. Would make sense.
Yeah, I think I think it's a very interesting concept. Like, I think all these programs serve a purpose. But yeah, and I read that you sent me the Gateway Process a long time ago, and just the opening statement alone said that people would question that it may collapse standardized religion. That the findings in this document may collapse standardized religion was pretty interesting. So I think that speaks for itself.
Well, and the cool thing about that too is, like, I don't believe in religion. First of all, I'll just get that out of the way. I believe in God. I don't believe in any man-made anything to do with religion. But within those documents, like, yes, it might, you know, upset people in terms of what they've grown to believe, just because they were, in my opinion, you know, were indoctrinated into different religions and things like that. However, if you actually read through the documents, they actually acknowledge that, you know, when they had these agents leaving their bodies and stuff like that, these agents were acknowledging the existence of an absolute, of a creator, of a God, whatever it is you want to call it. They you know, they discuss it as the absolute in the documents, but they very much say, you know, there's something else there, and we are part of something bigger, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think that you know, I think our goal is to sustain eternal life here, right? Like, and we have the capabilities to do it. But you know, these shells that we have, they're just like, that's exactly what they are. And then we come back and, you know, we either learn from our mistakes or we repeat, you know, what we did before. It's like whatever that movie is with Tom Cruise, or The Day After Tomorrow, or whatever it's called, or Tomorrow something, where he keeps repeating the same process over and over and over again. And he has to like make this right strategic moves to go on to the next stage. And I think life is a lot like that, to some degree. But I also believe that we're better served as tools. So I just find it interesting that these elitists, they live till they're 90, you know, or you know, they live so long. And obviously, I think when you have access to proper dieting, all those sorts of things, I think that's another thing is they market to us to be like gluttonous, and they understand that, you know, the human body doesn't need half the stuff we do or consume, or you know, those sorts of things. So
That's a good point.
Yeah, you know, it's about money, right? And imagine
and power.
Imagine if you removed money from society, there is no need for power, because then everybody's kind of on the equal playing field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you have is to teach one another. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know. These are just ideas that float around in my fucking brain. But
Well, what about adrenochrome?
oh, jeez, adrenochrome. You know, have you guys ever seen the French movie Martyr?
No.
Negative.
Okay, so it's like this elitist movie where they kidnap this girl and they bring her to the point of torture, right? Like they torture her to this point of where they slowly drain her body so that they can get a glimpse of like the afterlife, because there's that point in time between, like, you know, as you're slowly, you know, you compartmentalize, and then, you know, you see this in like cancer patients that are dying, like they have these revelations and these spiritual moments. So they were doing this to this young girl, and it was a slow, torturous death for her. But then they just kind of drained her of her power. And I've always thought that it was almost like a subliminal message to these sorts of adrenochrome theories. But if you look at what's his face there, Peter Nygard, he used to impregnate you know, young women, force them to abort, and then he would use the dead fetuses for stem cell implantation, right? And it kept them young, right?
It didn't work very well. He's still ugly.
Yeah, well, he may not be the best looking guy, but you can't argue a man that was 80 years old and ripped the way he was. There isn't something to do, like there isn't something there, right?
Well, and Kathy O'Brien discussed how she was ritually impregnated and aborted, and how they were, you know, taking the fetuses and, you know, torturing other people for adrenochrome and stuff like that. She does talk about that.
Yeah, it's, you know, this is a dark path. Like, you know, I don't like trenching down like the child molestation, and like it just makes me sick, man. And I don't like, you know, I don't like the thought of like dead babies, and, you know, it's just like these are areas that I really try to steer clear of. But, you know, there has to be something to it, right? Is why is it that time and time again we are seeing rich people connected to you know, organized sex rings, and all these women are kind of reporting the same thing about being impregnated and forced to abort, or giving birth and never seeing their child again. And, you know, these are common reports. It's like, you know, how many of them are lying, right? You can't have hundreds of these victims and just not start to question whether there's a legitimacy of truth. Like that frazzle drip video that was released on the dark web of Hillary Clinton, like cutting off that prostitute's face and wearing her face. You know,
I've never seen that. Has anybody here actually watched it?
No.
I heard it like, I heard if you don't want your life to change forever, not to watch it. So
I'm probably going to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, so there's got to be some sort of legitimacy of truth to it all. Now, again, but if we go back to like COINTELPRO, like you guys were talking about, like counterintelligence, like there's always like 80% truth, 20% is the lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to figure out and decipher what part is the truth and what part is the lie. So, you know, could it be as simple as using children for harvesting children for stem cell, or does it get way more nefarious? I don't know.
Well, my employee, he was actually on our podcast not too long ago, young Hayden. he made a good point the other day, because we were actually talking about adrenochrome, and like, for anybody listening, adrenochrome is real. You can easily look that up, and it's real. What is unknown is if these weird rich elites are using it to like stay young forever. But his point that he made was, his sister is, I think it was his sister, is allergic to bees, or maybe it's him. Anyways, doesn't matter. Sorry, Hayden. But he's like, we have to carry like an EpiPen. And his argument with this was, think about like, that's epinephrine. And for all intents and purposes, you're just injecting yourself with adrenaline, and it has the ability to pull you out of, whatever happens to your body when you're having an allergic reaction. So why is it so far out of the realm of possibility to say that, taking adrenochrome, and Jamie's got it up on the screen right here, actually. So for anybody doubting the validity of adrenochrome, it is a real thing. So I'm just going to read this, but it says adrenochrome is a chemical compound produced by the oxidation of adrenaline. It was the subject of limited research in the 1950s through to the 1970s. So same timeline as MK Ultra, just saying, as a potential cause of schizophrenia. While it has no current medical application, I can't see that one word. The semi-carbazide derivative, something that I also can't read, is a hemostatic medication.
Interesting.
The reason I keep using Wikipedia, because like if Wikipedia can't lie about it or hide it because it'll be too obvious, then fuck,
right.
Yeah. So it's real in itself. It's just, what are they using it for, and are they using it for those purposes is the real question. But when I looked at it from the way that Hayden said it to me, I was like, shit, like, you make a really good point.
Yeah. No,
I'd never thought of that before.
You're quiet over there. What do you think?
I agree with everything you're saying. Sorry, I've been like having coughing fits, like in and out. So you keep seeing me like mute, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna sit back and listen to all you guys rant and not talk much.
Ash, what about you?
It does sound very, very plausible that could be exactly what they're like, harvesting these fetuses and whatever for that exact purpose. It makes complete fucking sense.
Even when you look at, like, I think everybody here probably saw the Sound of Freedom, and when they give the stats at the end on the human trafficking, where they say, in today's day and age, there's more child slaves than there were actual slaves in the times of slavery. And I can't remember. I think they said it's, hopefully I'm not wrong about this, but it was somewhere in this neighborhood. Human trafficking, or trafficking of children, is a $145 billion industry worldwide. And I think it's like 75% of that comes from North America.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So what are we doing with all the children?
And even if you look at like stem cells are used now in medicine, like that's not a secret, right? Like stem cells are used, right? And it's specifically used to repair and regenerate tissues that have been damaged.
Pretty miraculous,
right?
What it can do. Yeah.
Exactly. So it sounds extremely plausible that they are harvesting these kids for that exact freaking purpose.
Well, Obama was a huge fan of the stem cell stuff too, just saying.
Shocker.
Hey, Tammy.
Hey, Ash.
I noticed something in the Kathy O'Brien video, and I wondered if you picked up on it too. Okay. She mentioned something about charm school, and how a lot of the kids were at, in this charm school or grooming schools for girls and boys, which were also state-run foster care systems. And you and I kind of went down a weird rabbit hole not too long ago, where we found out about all the the schools for delinquent girls and boys, and the strange sort of connections they have to Well, all the things we've been talking about. So I wondered if you kind of picked up when she mentioned that.
I 100% did, and it's hilarious that you brought that up because when I went for my massage tonight before this episode, I was actually thinking I have to bring up the school thing because there was, and now I can't remember the name of the school, and I'm actually trying to look for it now.
I know.
'cause
I was
think
hoping you
tweeted
would.
about it. Oh my gosh, and we were just talking about this. It was the all-girls school in Cambridge, Grandview.
Yes,
that
that
right?
was it. Yeah.
So the Grandview girl. Is that
Grandview?
right? Yes, it is. Yep. I just found it. So, in Cambridge, Ontario, which at this time it was Galt, there was a school called Grandview, and it was a girls' school. It operated from 1933 to 1976, and it was opened by the wife of the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. And the girls that went there weren't like criminals or anything like that. They were deemed unmanageable or incorrigible. And so it would be things like I watched a documentary on it. So some of the girls that were speaking that had gone there, the one girl, she had run away from home, and not run away in the sense of like, goodbye, I'm gone forever. She ran away in the sense of she didn't want to stay home, so she snuck out and she went to a friend's house, and she did that quite often. And the police got really tired of bringing her back to her parents. So they actually convinced her parents to basically make her a ward of the province, which means the province controls, they're basically the parents of this girl now. So when this would happen, and the judge would ward them to the province would put them into Grandview. And within Grandview, these girls were raped, molested, impregnated. There was sex parties held where like politicians and other like high ranking people would come and share these girls, and these were very young girls.
Wow.
And there is also, and I don't want to get into it today because I don't think it would be fair to the person, but I do know for a fact that there is ties to these girls also being involved in the Picton farm.
That's fucked up.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there are more schools than just the one. Like they're all over the country.
And-
Isn't it interesting that the predators create their own feeding grounds?
Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
And this is what Ashley and I kind of got into. So we went down a rabbit hole on like a Saturday morning of all of these schools that this was happening at. And what was the other one, Ash? The school for the deaf?
School for the deaf and yeah. Oh shoot, what was the name of it?
Hang on.
I
So
lost
these
my
are-
bookmark.
These schools are like in addition to the residential schools.
Yes, that's exactly right, Sue. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this one,
Yeah, listen to this.
so in 1997, a class action lawsuit was launched by former students that went to a school called Jericho School for the Deaf.
That's it.
Over 350 students were sexually abused in the school. The BC government ended up paying out $12.5 million as a result of the abuse. And then in 1996, the West Point Grey Academy was started and began occupying the buildings.
Do you know who
Which is
taught
a
at
whole-
West Point Grey Academy?
Wait,
Everyone?
that's where Trudeau was teaching, wasn't it?
Correct.
They straightened out
my
their act.
God.
though.
And then on top of that, at the same time that this lawsuit was going through, Justin Trudeau was the doorman for the Rogue Wolf, which was a bar that got shut down because the doorman was letting in minors.
Wow.
Yep.
And now that doorman is your prime minister, everybody.
And at the same time as that was happening, the Piggy Palace Good Time Society was running in Port Coquitlam, BC, which is Robert Picton's government registered charity. It was registered by his sister, who sat on the Privy Council of Canada.
Isn't that super interesting? Like, the guy looked like a total slop. Like, he just looked like a fucking creep. Can I curse on this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Fuck
Soon-
yeah.
Okay, cool. So how did he attract these elitists? Like,
So who? Robert Picton?
yeah, like, how did he attract them? Like,
He didn't.
or did they like seek him out? Or
He was okay. So
He was the butcher.
So Robert Picton never once, despite how it's been framed by the media, Robert Picton never ever admitted to murdering anybody. He only admitted to butchering the women. And when the way that it was framed by the media was that they had an RCMP officer undercover that went into the cell with him, and they framed it as Picton confessed to all of these murders. He didn't. He just said he butchered them. What he did say to the RCMP officer, and let me just get my notes because I have them right beside me.
She sleeps with them.
Because this has been my rabbit hole lately. So he stated to the RCMP officer in his cell that with all that evidence, I'm nailed to the cross. But if that happens, there's going to be about 15 other people that are going to go down.
Wow.
So, and then he says,
Disconnected.
they were my friends. I thought they were my fucking friends, and they're going to nail me to the cross.
Wow.
So I found that really interesting because they were my friends. Or sorry, I thought they were my friends. Now they're going to nail me to the cross. They. And he also wrote numerous letters, and that's for a whole other episode. But Ash and I were reading through them late one night, and you can't find them unless you use the Yandex browser.
Good old Yandex.
Yeah. But he says multiple times in the letters that there was other people involved, and he's their fall guy. And he actually wrote a book. I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of it. And I have somebody that's promised to they actually have one. They've promised to photocopy it and send it to me. So if you're listening, please send it. But he said multiple times he didn't do it. The interesting thing with this is at the same time that he was killing these women, women were also going missing from Washington, Seattle, from the exact same times. The even more interesting part about this is that the farm backed onto one of the most largest rail ports in Canada, as well as one of the largest seaports in Canada. The rail port went directly into Seattle, and the seaport, they were getting all sorts of things from China and everything else. So it's the perfect human trafficking kind of setup. But I think what was actually happening, based on everything that I've researched, is that the Picton farm was the dumping ground for the bodies. I think it was I hate to say it this way, but it was the last hurrah. Wow. And he was, butchering them and then taking them to rendering plants.
That's fucked up.
He was putting them into meat and giving like sausages and stuff out to people. But if there's a few documentaries, but if you actually look into Robert Picton himself, and this is going back to what you were saying about him being kind of, undesirable or whatever, the people that he was friends with, and many of his friends came forward in these documentaries, will all say he was rescuing people off of the streets, and actually like drug addicts and prostitutes and stuff. Several of them lived on his farm. He would give them money. Like he was actually taking care of many of them.
Oh wow.
Well,
That's fucked up.
that's the thing too, is like, so from my understanding, it was a failing farm, right? Like it was, but for some reason he had all kinds of money to give out to friends
Because
or
they sold pieces of their land off, I think in like 1994 and 1995. So they sold it to developers and got super, super rich.
oh, okay.
But also, what's really kind of interesting about this whole thing is he has a brother, and his brother, David Picton, was convicted of sexual assault in 1992. He was convicted of sexual assault a second time, but it was thrown out. He also was part of the turning the Piggy Palace Good Time Society into a charity with the sister. And then when everything went down and his brother got arrested, he started another charity, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was at 80 Rose Lane in Ghana. And yeah, he, oddly enough, he lived in the house. So Robert Picton himself lived in a trailer on the property.
Have you been able to connect him to the MK Ultra program at all?
That's what I've been trying to do. So that's like the smoking gun that I'm looking for, because the timing checks out. I believe that Robert Picton was a victim of MK Ultra. I believe so. David Picton, his brother, would tell him what time to go to bed. Like the guy could barely spell. And if you read through his letters, you would see that right away. Ash, you read through some of them, you would know that.
Mhm.
But David Picton was part of starting this Piggy Palace Good Time Society charity, and he lived in the house. And if you look through the evidence, and believe me, I have looked through, if there's evidence and you can find it, I've found it. And all of the evidence, aside from maybe 3 or 4 things, was found in the house. That's where David Picton lived, not where Robert Picton lived.
And where's David Picton now?
That's a great question.
Ooh, good question.
Supposedly, he went to Alberta for a bit. Then he was in Ghana doing this. It's like a children's charity to help the children.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And then I did hear recently that he was back in Vancouver, but people were like putting up signs like "Stay away from this man" and whatever. But Robert Picton, if you research it enough and you go deep enough, I'm sure everybody would come to the same conclusion. He was not capable of running this operation, because this was an operation, for as long as he did without getting caught. There's no fucking way, and nobody will convince me of it.
Wow.
This is dark.
It
I
is
know.
dark.
I don't know how we got here.
Man.
Jamie, are you still okay over there?
Oh, I'm great.
Now, is there any ties to like Picton's brother, like being like in a collegiate school, like a private school, something of that nature? And like maybe his brother was his handler, and like he was like teaching these or passing on these traits that he was taught to his brother?
So I've tried to find that out. There's very limited information on the family, but one thing I was able to find out, and this is interesting because it kind of correlates to Kathy O'Brien's story, is they were abused and humiliated by their parents on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that Kathy O'Brien talks about that happened to her as well. And I forget how she says it.
Like intergenerational.
Yes.
What do you call it?
Ritualistic abuse or something like.
Yeah.
multi-generational incest and ritualistic abuse and things like that. Yeah. And so these parents would actually wouldn't let these kids shower, and they would have them out like working in the pig guts and then they would send them to school smelling. And like, I grew up on a farm. If you've never smelled somebody that, and no offense to anybody that has a pig farm, but if you've ever smelled anybody that's fresh from the pig farm, like, it is bad. It is bad. So I can't even imagine these kids playing in the pig guts and then being sent to school, what that would do to them. And I also found some stuff where it said that he would, like, Robert Pickton would actually hide in the vats of pig guts to be safe from his parents.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So the intergenerational or multi-generational abuse stuff does kind of tie into that with what Kathy O'Brien was talking about, but I can't place them in a school. And I have, like, when I say I have searched on this, like, it's been hours and hours and hours.
What's their family heritage?
That's a good question. Jamie, can you find that out?
Well, I'm going to assume that they didn't go to school and their crazy parents homeschooled them.
Well, what if they're suffering? What if they suffered from, like, when we talk about, like, people in today's society that are, like, shot into the workforce and they're operating on behalf of, like, the establishment without knowing it? What if their parents were operating on behalf of, like, the MK Ultra program and they didn't even know it?
It sounds like something like that.
Yeah.
Well, she does talk about too the how did she say it, with the personalities,
Multiple personality disorder, but it's called something else now.
Associative identity disorder.
Yes, disassociation, and how they break off your personalities so that you don't remember things. And that's also a commonality with the Grandview Girls School. All of the girls that were on the documentary I watched all had that disassociative disorder and multiple personalities. So it could be that the parents were part of it and didn't even know.
Honestly, right now, everything for his parents says he just comes from a line of pig farmers. His parents were pig farmers. He was a pig farmer. Just good old-fashioned pig farmers.
What are the origins of the last name Pickton?
Let's find out.
English, probably.
Yeah,
Well,
that sounds
Sure.
English.
I'm reading here that his father was not involved in raising the children. His mother, Louise, may have done the best she knew how, but she was eccentric and tough.
Interesting. I wonder where the father was.
Definitely English.
I don't know. I do believe, because it is he was doing the killings, or somebody rather was doing the killings at the exact same time that the women were disappearing in Seattle, and they blamed that one on the Green River Killer, who I also think was a victim of MK Ultra. And I think it was part of a much bigger human trafficking operation. And if you dig deep enough, you can find a lot of evidence of human trafficking. And also the Vancouver mayor, he's not the mayor anymore. In fact, I think he's actually passed away, but he was seen at those parties on multiple occasions. And there is one witness who claims that they were eating adrenal glands at the parties, but it was kind of like a graduated system. So anybody could go to the parties, and then, it would break off into different areas where, if you were a somebody, you could go and see other things, right? Almost like like an eyes wide shut kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cat Williams talks about that or something about that, like where there's parties, but then there's the party.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And it would make sense, right? Well, I don't know if the whole thing makes sense, but
Oh, what is this that Jamie's showing us?
All right, I'm getting in here. This presentation that I just made up is called "Why the Victims Never Had a Chance at Justice." All right, so follow me here. 1953, MK Ultra drops. Right, director of the CIA at that time, Alan Dulles. This guy. All right, and then when I say people's names in this little presentation thingy, if I say CFR or Skull and Bones, it's because they were. And those membership lists are available to the public. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy. So Alan Dulles, CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, was director of CIA, and he actually started in 1953 when MK Ultra started. So his brother, this guy, John Foster Dulles, Council on Foreign Relations, and also a lawyer at a firm called Sullivan and Cromwell. Remember that name. Was also a senator when MK Ultra launched, and then eventually became 52nd United States Secretary of State. And then he spends time as a member of the Carnegie Endowment and the Rockefeller Foundation. All right. So when it comes to time to investigate MK Ultra, according to the CIA, as over here, this highlighted part that's really, really small, but I can read it. Who was in charge of investigating it for the government? Yeah, the Rockefeller Commission. Investigated MK Ultra. And who was in charge of the Rockefeller Commission? Nelson Rockefeller, Council on Foreign Relations. Nelson's father was a man by the name of Nelson Aldrich, whose daughter Abigail married John D. Rockefeller, and then they took on last names, and that's how he got into the family. Nelson Aldrich is the one who tabled the Federal Reserve Act in 1913.
Oh.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Right. So then in 1973, when they're investigating MK Ultra, and it's actually been brought in front of this commission, your president is Richard Nixon, Council on Foreign Relations. His Secretary of State is, wait for it, Henry Kissinger, Council on Foreign Relations. And yeah, then the whole investigation kind of got fucked up because the director of the CIA at that time destroyed the MK Ultra documents in 1973.
Richard Helms.
His name was Richard Helms, Skull and Bones. So then,
holy shit.
Whoa.
So then when it comes to, okay, so how do we tie Skull and Bones and Council on Foreign Relations together? So, and the people that we just talked about. So Skull and Bones is incorporated into the Russell Trust Association as a business, right? That's Wikipedia can't even lie about it, right? When Russell Trust Association, now remember we talked about John Foster Dulles and how he was a lawyer for Sullivan and Cromwell. Well, when they need legal help, they use Sullivan and Cromwell.
Holy shit.
What the hell?
Wow.
Fuck, you got one of them boards up and cork boards up with the string. This
That's
is
Tammy.
crazy.
So yeah, just wanted to share that. Oh, then one more quick thing. This guy, Tammy, you can maybe read that because it'll sound funny coming from a girl's voice.
Michael Aquino and MK Ultra. So Michael Aquino was a high-ranking member of the Church of Satan and the founder of the Temple of Set, a religious movement that revolves around the ancient Egyptian sun god Set. He was also a political scientist and a psychological warfare specialist in the U.S. Army, where he was involved in programs like MK Ultra. Fuck off. MK Ultra was a secret CIA project that aimed to explore the potential of mind control and psychological manipulation.
Okay. So right now we can't see what this guy looks like, right? But maybe like if we got to look at him, maybe there's something that would tip us off that like he loves Satan and is evil as fuck. So let's see what he looks like.
His eyebrows.
Oh my God!
No way.
Who could have known?
Wow.
I actually
no way.
I actually saw an interview with him today when I was looking this stuff up, and he was talking about how the military was fine with his practices and stuff like that. And
Of course they are, because they're all in on it.
Corrupted. That's fucked up. Like man. I'm just,
My mind is blown.
this stuff is it's dark. Like it's so dark. Like
Welcome to the rabbit hole, Jason.
oh man. Yeah, no, that's
Very dark down here.
no shit. You guys talk about you guys need to start like adding some flowers and sunshine to this stuff.
Our flower and sunshine episode was last week.
Yeah.
Freestyle.
You gotta balance things. You gotta balance.
You got a
okay.
palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good.
But
That's good.
on that note, this has been our longest episode yet. So we should probably call this a night.
And a very interesting conversation it was.
Yeah, it sure was. This was like, I'm looking forward to listening to this one tomorrow on my drive. Jason, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. We hope you will come back again. We'll try to make it less dark next time.
No. Sunshine and rainbows next time. Sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Like this
You
stuff.
should join us. Jason, you should join us for one of our freestyle episodes.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this almost kind of skirted into a freestyle, and
It did.
No.
It did.
When you listen to the one that just dropped, you'll understand what we mean by freestyle.
okay, I'll have a listen tomorrow morning there when I'm just putting together a few posts. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. Like I love what you guys do. You guys have great like great chemistry with one another, and just reliving the MK Ultra episode again. It was pretty funny because you guys were like, did we have Jamie then? You guys were actually begging for your Jamie in that episode.
Oh, right. We were.
Here I am.
The mind control worked on Jamie.
Yes.
Yeah, the MK Ultra. I don't know.
Jason, tell everybody where they can find you.
Just on Twitter. So it's just Wiretap Media CA. You could check out my YouTube. It's just Wiretap Media. And, I'd give out my address, but I don't think that's a good idea. So
You're already on the government list.
I know they have. They know who I am. I just don't need Antifa knocking on my door too.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
And we will include your YouTube address on the episode links when we post it.
Sure, I appreciate it. It's not necessary. Like this is your jam. I loved being here and loved chatting, and I learned a lot. And we'll touch base again. I'd love to do it again.
Awesome.
Yes, awesome. Thanks so much for coming, Jason.
Ladies, final thoughts?
I don't have any.
I'm an indigo child. Who knew? I feel like I need to do a deep dive on what an indigo child actually is, because I was today years old when I heard about it.
Well, maybe we'll do an episode on the gateway process and indigo children.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes. Okay, let's do that.
Jamie, any final thoughts for you?
No, that dot connecting hurt my head. By the time people hear this, I'll have a Big Puff episode out. So go check that out.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You're on Big Puff tomorrow recording. Have fun.
Right.
They are a blast.
Thank you.
They are so much fun. I wish you luck. You'll do great. So thanks everybody. Oh, actually, no, before I forget, who's up next? Suze?
No,
Ash.
Me, and we are going to have a special guest on. We're going to have Dan Hartman. He actually had a 17-year-old son, and his son died 33 days after his first Pfizer vaccine. The cause of death of Sean was unascertained. So Dan has just launched 2 lawsuits, one against Pfizer and one against Health Canada. And so we're gonna have a chat with him and just hear a little bit more from him.
Awesome.
Mhm.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.